tossers have thrown it out the door with their behaviour this week. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should absolutely look at themselves in the mirror and wonder what the have they been doing. They were hissing at us and calling us cheats in the Lord's long room, and they have the gall to say, talk to us about the spirit of cricket. Absolute bullshit. There's a big appeal that's hit him on the pad. He's out. Lions gone. New South Wales are 9 down. Onto Sydney Road, and it's hit a car. Oh, I think it's hit a car. What a way to bring up your 50.
All you want is to leave it all behind. Now there is a simple remedy to stay fit for all eternity.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Menners Masterclass. And this is a first for Menners Masterclass because I'm doing part 2. Last year, I had the pleasure of hosting Mike Whitney on the show, and we got stuck into his playing career, but we left a lot on the table that we didn't get to talk to. So Mike Whitney is back on the show. Mike, welcome. Great to see you.
Great to be back, Manners. And just prior to coming on, I said, how lucky am I to be able to talk about a career after cricket? And it's been pretty much as amazing as my cricket career, so very fortunate and happy to be back, mate. Fantastic.
Oh, it's great to see you. I want to talk about the cricket. I want to have a bit of an Ashes chat. I want to talk about your new podcast. I'm sure I played a part in inspiring you to start a podcast.
Absolutely. You're a veteran now, brother.
That's
Been
right.
around for a while, but yeah, look, the podcast, 18 months ago, I said, who'd want to listen to our rubbish? And we've been going 18 months now, and it's really starting to catch fire, and it's a lot of fun. And I think the thing that I've learnt just from the podcast is that you could pull a bloke picking your garbage off in the street, like the local council garber, and say, sit down, mate, and have a yarn, and everybody's got a story. Everyone has a story. But of course, we're very lucky that we get to meet some fascinating people who have got amazing stories. We've done musicians, a lot of sporting people, a couple of referees, which is fantastic. We had Billy Harrigan on not that long ago. And I said to him, South's never won a game. In any game you refereed. And he went, oh, is that right?
Because people listening to this will know you as former Australian cricketer, TV personality, but might not know that missing piece that, massive rugby league, tragic, instrumental in campaigning for South to come back into the NRL.
Yeah.
It does. And a lot of your podcast, How's That, talks a lot of rugby league coverage in there. And, you guys do it well. There's 3 of you on the show. I'm not a huge rugby league fan. The listeners to this podcast will know, but the bits I've heard, really good. And I dipped in. You did a beautiful tribute to the late Bob Simpson on How's That. Fantastic. And, we'll talk about your media career later, but there's not many former athletes that become such media stars like you have become. And, this podcast, I think it's so fantastic that people can still hear you and hear your insights into sport. And are you enjoying, talking about it again?
Yeah, and surprised at how many memories pop into my head, Dawsey, who's Andrew Dawson, or Ray Nosty, who I grew up with in Matraville. That's Ray Sugar Nosty. Ray will say something and this story will just pop in my head relevant to what he said, and I haven't thought about it for 25 years or back to the cricket days, sometimes 35 or 40 years, and I'll go, yeah, I spent a day with so-and-so there in England in 81, and this story just comes up. So there's a lot in here and a lot of really amazing stories, given that the cricket was fascinating, but also the media after that. There's 30 years of stories there. But I am enjoying it, and I'm enjoying talking to people. Like, we've had Doug Waters. He's my hero still. And to sit opposite Dougie still, given that I've known him since about 1979, I'm still so humbled to be in his presence. He's a mentor and an elder of mine. And to have him on Len Pascoe as well. I mean, Len was already a senior player and a test player when I got in the New South Wales side. He mentored me as well.
Two blokes I coached with, actually. And I saw Doug Walters earlier this year at the New South Wales Premier Cricket Awards. Parramatta Cricket Club brought him along because he's a patron there. And he was still in great form. Wonderful man. I'll never forget, my dad suddenly passed away 25 years ago, and I was coaching with Doug that week. And so I couldn't go to work, obviously, the next day. But he called me and told me, he told me, son, keep your chin up.
Yeah.
And it was so nice of him to reach out. I mean, he's a great guy. So I'm going to actually go and find that episode of How's That, which I think is on all podcast apps at the moment.
Yeah.
You do an episode every week, This Week in Sport.
Yep.
And it is a roundup of all sports.
Yep.
And the three of you shooting the shit about what's going on. So, if you love your Aussie sport, it's a great show because you cover cricket, NRL, racing.
Bit of surfing. I love my surfing, and of course with the cricket coming up. But look, when we started talking about it, of course I said, who wants to listen to our rubbish, And before I knew it, Shugsy's bought the Road podcaster.
Yep.
Fantastic. And Dozen Road makes some fantastic gear. And Road's just given
Got one
us
right here.
some new gear. We've got the podcaster 2, I think, now, and fantastic microphones and headphones. But before I knew it, he'd bought the gear. And I went, oh, okay, what are we going to do? And then we said, let's just make it like we're sitting in a pub having a beer or having a cup of coffee. And you can swear a little bit on the podcast still. We try not to swear too much, but it's just like three blokes sitting around having a chat. And we have a bite at each other sometimes. I go to Shugs, you got to be joking, Shugs. But I've known him since I was like 14. So we go back a long way, and he'll have a little bite at me, and then after it we'll laugh about it all. And the people that we've had on, I mean, some of the musicians, John Brewster from the Angels, we've had Rick Grossman, who played bass for Matt Finish, the Divinals and the Hoodoo Gurus. We've had Richard Clapton on. I mean, I grew up listening to Richard Clapton music, and he's sitting opposite us. And we do it in Shugs's record room. Now, Ray's a great musician, but he's got 10,000 vinyl albums in this room. And we've set up the podcast in this room.
Beautiful.
So as Richard Clapton was talking, Ray's pulling his albums out from behind him and handing him, oh, this is the first album that you ever made, Richard, 50 years ago. And Richard's looking at that, and he's got every album. It's just such an insane... And everybody walks in there and goes, wow, it's got to be one of the biggest vinyl collections in Australia, and they're pristine. And he knows, just mention an album, he'll go, yeah, it's there. All in order, all in alphabet. I mean, it's just crazy. So, yeah, it is really exciting. And to sit with someone like Doug or Len and talk about their careers and what they remember to me. But Richard Clapton, man, I remember going to see him 15 times, more, maybe more.
Weren't Pascoe and Tomo playing? Pascoe wasn't. I mean, there were stories of Pascoe, grade cricket, terrifying blokes.
Yeah, they played for Bankstown.
Yeah, that's it.
They opened the bowling.
Yeah, so Pascoe and Tomo.
Yeah.
You're a bloke turns up on a Saturday morning, and it's Lenny Pascoe.
And they reckon they'd turn up at like 10:30. They'd already been down to have a surf somewhere at Cronulla, and the boards were on the roof, and they'd run half a lap and then run in, and Lenny would say, if Tomo doesn't get you, I'm gonna. And, oh, yeah, and they bowled 90 miles an hour. Yeah. And were very scary and very aggressive.
And Len then went on to do a lot of stuff in the sort of sports science and trail, fast bowlers training and bulking up and getting into weights when that really wasn't fashionable yet. He was a bit of a trailblazer.
He also was the first person ever to pick up a horse riding helmet and go, maybe this is what we need. And a lot of people don't know that. He was, I think, with Ian Davis, who was working for Dunlop or something like that at the time. But Len's also, after that, he's had an interesting time after he's retired because he worked out there was a bit of a niche in the speaking circuit where the clubs and the RSLs and this didn't have enough money to pay the top guys, but there was just this
gap in the market.
And he worked it out, and he took shows and he took people. He managed singers who were doing Neil Diamond shows for 15 and 20 years and got a lot of speakers like Dougie and myself to go along and do these shows where you weren't getting thousands of dollars, but you were getting handsomely paid for the afternoon, and it was a great day. So he did fill the niche there, and he's done very well, and still out and about doing those sort of things.
Yeah, great memories of Lenny. Well, go and check out How's That?
How's That, the podcast?
Go and check it out. Now, I'm sure on How's That, you're talking a lot about the Ashes. Just before we get into the Mike Whitney story, I just want to get your lens on this upcoming Ashes. How do you see the series playing out generally before we get into a bit of detail?
Look, everybody's really difficult to beat at home. So I'd like to think that's the first plus for us. And I would expect that the dozen or 15 guys that are throwing their hands up for this first or second test are pretty excited about an Ashes series. It's whatever. Look, the India-Australia series now is big because India is such a powerhouse. But traditionally, if you want to play in a series and you're an Australian, you either want to play the Ashes here or go to England. That is still the ultimate for us. The question marks are going to be who's going to open the batting with Usman. And I'm still sitting on the fence with a few people there. But names like Renshaw are starting to get thrown around. Marnus, is he going to open the batting? Is he going to bat 3? All this sort of stuff. If we can work that out over the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks with these games that are playing, the Shield cricket rounds, and there's one-day games against India starting soon.
Of course, this weekend.
So there's still a spot there. The all-rounder spot might be up. Is Cameron Green going to bowl? He bowled 4 overs in the Shield game against New South Wales. Only 4 overs. I went, why are they taking him off? He got a wicket first ball. Are you only allowed to bowl 4 overs?
And he couldn't bowl the next day.
Couldn't bowl the next day. To me, that's... How do you get miles in your legs and your body, bowling? And he can bowl quick. And as a quick bowler in first class or test cricket, you've got to bowl. You just can't go out there and expect to bowl 20 overs in a game if you haven't bowled in a game. And it's not like bowling in the nets. But he's a very good player. He made me eat a lot of humble pie batting at 3. I didn't think he was good enough to bat at 3 or up the order that high. He's a fine young player. But his bowling's a skill that we need to have. Great hands, bucket hands. So who fills that spot? It's a bit up in the air looking, with Pat out as well. It's not just his bowling, it's his presence. I mean, he's highly respected, has run the team very well. Hasn't been any incidents with Pat being the captain, but missing his bowling is good. But there's a lot of bowlers running around that are going to fill that spot. And to have someone like our mate down in Victoria running in who got Sam Constas out yesterday in the first over.
Scotty Boland.
Scott Boland would play test cricket in any other team in the world. And he's our number 4. He'll come straight in, and then it's after that. So, look, I think we've got the chops and the replacements or the people to fill in, all-rounders, Matt Short and these guys. They're very, very, very good players. I wrote a few things down in my book yesterday for a radio interview, and I just kept writing names down.
There's some good cricketers. I do think having a little bit of an uncertain top order is probably something that just opens the door for England a little. That engine room, not knowing who your top 3 are.
See, I don't want Marnus to open the batting. I don't see Marnus as an opener. I see him as a number 3, and traditionally that's your best player. So the Greg Chappells of the world had to open the batting if one of the openers got out early.
Yeah.
Or if we're 1 for 50 or 1 for 100, in you come, you got to kick the score on. I think Marnus is good. He got 300s basically in a week up in Queensland, and he's a nuffy, mate. He would have dived right down the rabbit hole trying to work out what's going on. And every really good player or great player has had a time out of the team after their initial stage. There's very few that have stayed in the team and not had a drop in form. Steve Waugh, Mark Taylor, everybody. Tubby held his spot only because he was captain and the side was winning, and he got 100 in an Ashes game in England, and that got his batting going. But Marnus would have gone away, and he's just such a nuffy, angles, bat, grip, everything, and he looks like he's found a bit of form again. So I'd like to see him bat 3, but that leaves the opening spot with Usman. Who opens the batting with him? Menners, tell me.
That's the problem. So I'm sitting on the fence with this one, a bit like you, and I actually do have some sympathy for the selectors. I don't think anyone's really stated a really strong case at the moment apart from Marnus. And Kerry O'Keefe put out a side this week, and it had Khawaja, Marnus opening, Smith at 3, Green at 4, which is good because then he can bowl a bit, but he's not 3, so he doesn't have to get the pads on straight away. Head at 5, Bo Webster at 6.
Great cricketer, Bo Webster.
And he can bowl, and he's got bucket hands.
Great cricketer.
And I think that's a pretty strong top 6. For me, I'm a bit worried about Khawaja, Marnus at Smith in the top 3 because I think you want someone who's going to put a bit of pressure back on the England quicks early. And traditionally those 3 soak up pressure rather than transfer pressure, where a Constas, a Weatherald, or Warner used to do.
Yeah.
So that's why I have some sympathy for selectors, because right now You know, they need Constance to go out and smash 100. They need Weatherall to go out and smash 100 and say, give me the spot. I'm in red hot form. Renshaw, can he smash a big 100 against India?
Yeah.
Maybe then they think about him to open with Khawaja.
Yeah.
So it is still a bit up in the air. I just want to go back a bit to Cummins. Great leader. But I was thinking this morning, actually on the way in here, that I actually think now we're suffering a little bit for making Cummins captain. I take on board everything you've said about great leader, no incidents. But when you were playing, there was a few thoughts around captaincy, and one of them was fast bowlers shouldn't be captains. Not because they used to make jokes about being fast bowlers being dumb. It's not because they're dumb. It's because it's bloody hard work. You might need to miss the odd game if you get a few niggles, because if you push through it, that's when you do a stress fracture, and you're in a situation right now where Cummins is in doubt. So I think the fact that Cummins has pushed through so many series as captain and been a champion, I mean, it's sort of caught up with him now.
It's a long time as a fast bowler to go without injuries, and we remember at the start of his career, he had a couple of years out. You know, he burst onto the
5
scene,
years
had a
out.
wonderful tour to South Africa. He was 19 or so. We went, wow. But yeah, many years out trying to get that right, and he got it right. So to go from there to here, this is basically his first major injury, but it's his back. And this is what happens when you get into your 30s. You know, they've bowled a lot. They've been around a long time. Stark and Hazel would have been around a lot longer than that. Is it starting to catch up? Do we lose them all together? If we do, wow, that's a big blow, because you put that trio together with Lino's 500 plus. That's been unbelievable over the last 10 years. Like, how do you replace all of that? I think Nathan will play till he can't get his arm over anymore. I watched him bowl in Perth and yesterday at the Junction Oval. He's still really bowling well. He's got a lot of concentration on his face. He's really trying to get some overs in coming into the Test series.
I don't think we can win in India in 2027 without Lyon.
Him. Yeah, I think so too. He's got to keep playing.
But what do you think about that lesson? Like, because you're someone from the generation above. Sometimes I think lessons get lost, and everyone thinks they know better. A couple of things. Keepers shouldn't be captains. Fast bowlers shouldn't be captains. Was when you were playing, it was always give it to a batter, because you know what? When we're in the field, he's got nothing to do apart from chew gum, so make him do the captaincy.
Traditionally, the wicketkeeper was normally the vice-captain usually, wasn't it? And the big tradition of that, Rodney Marsh and
Heels,
Gilly, all those guys, absolutely, Heels. And that's a really good job for them, I think, because they've still got a lot of respect. They're the wicketkeeper. They're right in the game. You're out in the field. They're in the game every ball. And they're looking at angles and stuff like that. They're in the best position. But, yeah, look, I've never had a problem with Pat being captain, but I can see your point. And if we lose him, then it's going to go back to, Steve Smith will captain the side, and he'll be standing at first or second slip in the traditional manner doing what he's got to do. But you can't criticise Pat. He's been very good. But it's a point to take, how long can a fast bowler last? And how long can you keep doing that in your 30s and not starting to break down? So we've got to wait and see now to see how his recovery is. Has he come back? How much is he going to play? Is it the long form of the game? Do they want to play the short form of the game now? I can't believe that even Dan Christian is rolling around the world playing in Masters tournaments, probably making as much money as he's ever made. But Dan's still very fit and very good. They've just played in Canada. Did you watch much of that?
I did. I turned it on. I couldn't believe it. T10 league indoors in Canada.
On an NFL or rugby ground where you only got to get a top edge and it went for 6. And they were looking at they had a shot of the wicket. What was that wicket made from? And I
don't know.
It was strange. But look, I suppose the positive side of that is they're trying to introduce cricket into Canada, and that's a good thing. But yeah, it's
So yeah, hopefully Pat comes back. I actually think they should probably make Smudge captain soon for the summer and just say, Pat, worry about your back, worry about your bowling. Pat was talking on Monday about still travelling around with the team, even though he's not fit to play. And I also don't know if that's the best idea, because England looks at Cummins walking around in the tracksuit, not playing the whole time. I'd say, Cummins, just go and come back when you're ready. Like, we don't need you if you're not playing.
I wonder how Steve Smith would feel about that too, having Pat the captain in the dressing room when you're the captain and he's not, but he's certainly got that aura and that stigma around him. If he was fit, he's captain. I wonder how Stephen would cope with that. Although Smithy's a pretty laid back sort of dude, mate. He plays his cards very close to his chest, and I mean, I'm sure he's just going to revel in this. He'd be so excited about it. He'd want to take them down with the bat. I mean, the guy's just one of the best ever.
Yeah, I keep saying on the podcast they should just announce Smith as captain for the Ashes now, because I think England are coming. They're locked in. They've got a plan. Whether it's going to work or not, we'll get to that. But they're coming with their focused. Stokes and McCullum have been building up to this. I want Smith to be in that same. I want Smith to be like, okay, you're going to be captain, Smudge. Start thinking about how we're going to win the Ashes.
So even to handle the media stuff and that now?
Yeah, I'd be saying
sort of move Pat out
pretty soon.
Yeah, you're the captain. Get up and talk in front of the camera.
Exactly. The only problem with that is I think Smith's in New York, so I guess that would be. I think Smith's still in New York. He hasn't come back yet for the Shield. I think he's coming back in the next week or two to play the Shield. Smith has made a fortune. He's a good investor. But I think that would be funny. Like if Cricket Australia announced Smudge as the Ashes captain and
he's in New York.
Yeah, being beamed in from Central Park or something. So maybe there is actually some media savvy in not announcing that yet. But look, the Poms wind me up. Poms wind me up always, the way they approach cricket. I just think we're very different, both nations, the way we approach cricket, and it came out in 2023. But I think it's interesting because this summer, England are coming out as almost that the roles have reversed. England are coming out as this brash, aggressive side. You know, they're talking a good game. They're saying they're revolutionising.
Even Stuart Broad's
exactly,
talking it up.
And he's not even playing anymore.
Right.
And so the Australians are a bit like the English used to be. Very softly spoken, very polite, not being drawn into these verbal wars. It's almost like the roles have reversed. And so I think it's an interesting change. You know, England coming out as the villains. No one likes the English team at the moment. I know Gilly and a few players get wound up by them saying they're changing cricket, whereas, you know, Gilly had a strike rate Test cricket of almost 100.
He did change cricket.
Yeah, exactly. But how do you see like what England are bringing to Australia?
As in
the team. What do you think of the team and the attitude and, you know...
The rhetoric's been interesting already, and it is much more aggressive. And I heard Stuart Broad talking the other day. He was really talking, and David Warner as well, in the same sort of thing, going, well, you know, one will get rained out, so that's us 4-0, and it's going to be on for young and old. And I think this is Baz McCullum and Stokes. You know, they're very aggressive cricketers. Baz was super aggressive, a winner. Him and Stokes are formidable together. And Stokes has got to be fit and he's got to bowl. He can't do what he did against India, bowled himself to death and then missed the last test, and he's so vital for them to be on the ground. Some of these young blokes got to take a bit of that bowling load off him. That's where I think they've got a problem. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So, yeah, the aggressiveness, they want to play that style of game. They want to score 350 a day. They want to play Bazball. They want to do that. The hard thing about that is you can't do that everywhere you go, and you can't do that in every game, and it's going to cost you a game. Out here, it's a different story. We're short, we're at you, we're aggressive. We're not saying too much at the moment, but let me tell you, when they walk out on the ground for the first day, the aggression will be on for young and old. Our blokes will really run in and give it to them. There'll be plenty set on the field. Travis said, don't mind a bit of a chat. Marnus, don't mind a bit of a chat. Usman won't say a word. He never does. Doesn't have to. Us just looks at you. So they're building it up to be something very special. Whether they can hold their nerve or not, that's going to be the question. And they've got to hold their nerve with their bowling. So let me talk about that. Jofra Archer on his day, unbelievable. Mark Wood on his day, 150 clicks. That's scary, scary shit. I faced some of that stuff in my day, batting 11 with the West Indians. You can't see the ball. It's amazingly fast. It's like it's coming out of a cannon at you. How long can they maintain that? They can't seem to play. Jofra will play 2 or 3 in a row and a home down.
So maybe you get one of those a test match.
Well, do they? Or could you imagine them together in Perth? Running in, bowling.
And that's the talk. They're going to try and come at us hard.
Why wouldn't you do that? But this is the question. You watch Mark Wood, and this is no criticism of the guy. If he bowls in a test match and bowls, 40 overs in a test match, that takes a lot out of you bowling at 150. So in the next game, he'll just be a little bit off that maybe. And I'm not saying 140 to 145 is still pretty sharp, but he'll drop off and then they'll get injured. And Jofra's the same. Jofra will bowl really quick in a specific spell, or then he'll drop off. And I reckon they'd be planning only use those guys in maybe 2 or 3 tests. If they can bowl them together, great. But if they can get 3 tests out of each of those guys and do some damage with them, they'll be happy with that.
One together, maybe 2 together, and spread them out.
Why wouldn't you want to play them together in Perth?
Exactly.
Like, did you watch the New South Wales Western Australian Shield game? Mate, that ball was swinging round corners, and everybody sort of criticised, Constas didn't get any. You go out and bat on a deck in Perth like that. Mate, I would have liked to have had a bowl on that now of one step. Joel Paris was swinging it around the door half a metre. So that was a tougher than ever. But why wouldn't you try and unleash Jofra Archer and Mark Wood on that? On a whacker or a Western Australian belter of a wicket where it's just going to carry through and they're going to frighten some people and they're going to get hurried up with pace. So the younger guys on there,
Cast,
Tongue,
Atkinson.
Gus Atkinson.
I rate Atkinson a lot. I think he's their version of Scotty Boland. Just puts it on that annoying length and just does enough.
He's got a good motor as well. Not too shabby with the bat. He scored runs for him. He seems to be a good part of that team. And you see, I'm always looking for when the bowler gets the wicket, how many people run in and actually get around, and they all run around and get around Gus Atkinson. He's great. They get around Jofra, but Jofra, look, again, I don't want to criticise him. If you watch him bowl, he's the most unluckiest bowler that's ever bowled. Oh, he's played and missed that one. Or that's an LBW appeal, not out. Oh. And I remember in the Indian series, he wanted to change ends and bowl from the other end. And the interaction between him and Stokes was fascinating. You couldn't hear the conversation. It was like, hey, I'm the captain and I'm telling you, go and bowl at that end. And Jofra sort of walked back a little bit huffy and puffy and bowled a few more overs and went off. Can't have that, bro. You got to run in, whatever end the captain says, and bowl your bloody blurter out for him and the team. Don't get the shitties on. Don't get upset if you're not bowling at the right end. Just run in and bowl. And the next spell, have a talk to the skipper about that. But he seems to get a bit cranky, down, shitty, whatever it is.
And that's what in Australia, if the tide turns against you, if England come here in the first test doesn't go as they'd like, it can be overwhelming. How does someone like Archer react to that? And I also think, like this whole England team, one thing, they talk a good game, but they don't have the results to back it up. So they're not coming out here having beaten India. They're not coming out here having beaten Australia when we were last year. They're coming out here with a lot to prove, but they haven't actually proven anything yet. So if it goes well, great. McCullum and Stokes are going to be heroes. If it doesn't, though, I reckon the barbs will be out from both. Like, obviously, Australia will be ready to get stuck into them, but the English tabloids won't mess around if they lose that first test.
They're nasty. Well, this is why I think they're starting to talk it up, and they're starting to talk a bit aggressive and getting Stuart Broad on side. He'll be in the commentary, no doubt.
Yep.
And he's talking it up as well, because maybe they do think that they've got a little bit of, in their batting order as well. I mean, if we can knock their 2 openers over, and they're different styles of players. Duckett really wants to see bat on ball, and then what's the other guy's name? Sorry,
Zach Crawley.
Crawley, big tall guy, big body, a bit vulnerable early, but if he gets in, he's a really, really
they
beautiful
go so
stroker.
hard at the ball, and our pitchers are doing so much at the moment. They go
hard, and then we want to get Root in, who hasn't made 100 out here in Australia. I'm sure that'd be eating him away. He is a master batsman now. He'd want to do really good. If we can expose him early and then the next of the middle order, we could get right into it.
I don't know if you heard your old mate Matt Hayden said if Root doesn't score 100 this Ashes, he'll do a nude run around the MCG.
Who, Matty will?
Yes. So,
geez, that'd be well worth watching.
So, let's hope Root doesn't score 100 just for that. He's got a podcast now as well. Everyone's got a podcast.
Now, let me just say that again. Let's say it on this podcast. Matty Hayden said if Root doesn't score 100 on this tour, he's going to do a nudie run around the MCG. Yep. Is on a game day or when there's no one in there?
Well, I guess it'd have to be after the Ashes, so you probably do it during a big bash game after that.
Geez, he's a big body, Haydos. That'd
Yep.
be
Absolutely.
that'd be something to watch running around the MCG. God.
So so that's so I just think England come as the villains,
Yeah.
a lot to prove, and they're not very well liked, this English side. So I think it's got all the makings of a wonderful summer.
Let's run through the order because probably that Smith, the keeper, he's a very, very good player.
Yeah, so what, Crawley, Duckett at the top,
Yep.
then Pope or Bethel at 3.
That's right.
Now,
What do
you
you
might
think-
have seen Bethel. He played actually grade cricket here a couple of years
did.
ago, and I saw him quite a bit, and he was quite young then and little, but he's a decent player.
He's evolved into a decent player. Yeah.
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 And then Root at 4, Brook at 5, Stokesy at 6, Smith at 7, and then
Then the
the
rest.
bowlers.
Yep.
And one thing about that order, they go so hard at the ball. In Australian conditions, you actually want to give your fast bowlers a bit of a rest. We talk about longevity through the series. If England are only batting 70, 80 overs, that's not a whole day. They really want to keep Australia out there to tire our
As long as
bowlers
you
out,
can.
but also to give their blokes a bit of a spell in the shed. So, that's where I wonder how Bazball's going to hold up under the glare of Australia.
You need to give your fast bowlers a rest out here in Australia, particularly if you're playing at Adelaide and it's 35 degrees. Our guys will handle that a bit better than them, but they'll need to give their fast bowlers a rest. The problem I think they're going to have with their bowling is their spin bowlers. I can't remember too many off spinners in my life coming to Australia. Swan probably doing well. I mean, our guys just run at off spinners and want to hit them over their head and out of the game immediately.
I think my thoughts around that are, so they're going to punt with Bashir,
Yeah.
and I've said this on the podcast before, he was playing suburban cricket here a couple of years ago. So he's jumping about 8 levels.
He's been picked
He's
a
jumping
few times from his
jumped-
second 11.
Yeah, so he's jumping 5 grades in Australia. He's gone from Linfield,
Yep.
gone all through the grades, through Shield, and now he's coming back as a test player.
Yep.
So he's jumping 8 grades overnight. So
Yep.
there's no idea how he's going to play. But I actually think their backup plan, which actually I don't mind, is, you know what? If Bashir doesn't do well, we're just not going to play a spinner. They
We'll
bought
bowl Root.
Yeah, they bought Will Jacks,
And Jacks, yeah.
who's primarily a batter. I mean,
Yep. But
I reckon
can
you could bowl offies as well as him right now. And, they're just going to stack their batting with and have, a couple of guys who can maybe, if you put all the all-rounders and they can soak up 10, 15 overs a day, you're all right.
But that's where I see their problem is. Having a world-class, really high-quality off-spinner. Root can bowl a bit. Jacks can bowl a bit. Bethel can bowl a bit.
But I think they're going to come at line, which I think is going to be interesting.
Fascinating if they do. If they run at him, I think that'll be right up our alley because he's a craft. You don't get 500. How many wickets has he got now?
500 plus, yeah.
From, being a Dumbo. And sometimes early in his career, I was a bit critical of Nathan. He'd be bowling over the wicket, and all around them, whatever it was. Over after over. I said, just change the angle, mate, whatever. But, mate, he's a master too now. He's a very, very good cricketer, great cricket brain, captain New South Wales at the moment, doing a great job there. And, yeah, Lionel will keep playing until his arm falls.
But he's a bit of a vital cog because we saw him go out in the 2023 Ashes.
Yeah.
There's no one really behind line. And people are talking about top order, talking about the fast bowlers, who's behind the fast bowlers we have. But actually, if you look at Lyon, if he gets out, then you bring in Kuhneman. Now, he's done well at test level, but he's unproven. The Ashes are totally different. Playing in Australian conditions, he hasn't played a home test before. So, if they
turned a fair bit in Sri Lanka as well, the ball. And he bowled well.
He's a very good bowler.
Very good bowler. And
But if they go at line and it comes off,
yeah.
then Smith is going to be looking around the field at Bo Webster and Green and going, you're going to have to pick up some overs, boys, because we're in trouble here. Because what Lyon is able to do is shut down the scoring.
Absolutely. And just go from one end and you rotate your quicks from the other. What a bonus to have that for 10 years. And he can shut it down and he picks up, mate, he's got 500 test wickets. I mean, can't argue with that. So, mate, it's how the cards are all coming out for both sides at the moment is absolutely fascinating. And before we know it, the first test will be on.
Yep. Do you have a sort of inkling of a prediction yet?
No. I'm sort of thinking, I think we can win 3 tests. Is there one that's going to be marred by rain? Maybe. I think we can win 3-0.
Yeah, I like it.
I think they're going to have to play really, really well to beat us. They can do that. But all those things we've talked about, giving your quicks more of a rest out here is a crucial part of the sums when you come out to Australia. If you're playing in Adelaide or Perth or anywhere, Brisbane, and it's humid in Brisbane, or you're playing in Perth and it's like you're playing in Adelaide. I've played 40-degree days in Adelaide. Man, it just steals you and you just want to go in, lay in the bath and have a day off. But that next afternoon, you know you're going to be bowling, so you've only got half a day off. So you think, oh, here we go again. But if they want to play it that way, they're going to make sure their bowlers are up for that. And that's why I think they picked these young guys to rotate them through some of the test matches and relieve the pressure from every game. I can't see, I might be wrong, see Jofra Archer and Mark Wood playing 5 tests.
No. I can see England throwing a few punches in this series and maybe landing a few. Maybe they win a test for the first time in 15 years. I find it hard to believe they can come out here and beat us in the series.
Yeah.
I think I'm sort of thinking the best the Poms could do would be something like 2-2. You know, they snatch a test early and snatch one of the tests and they go home with a bit of pride because, haven't won here. They haven't won a test here in 15 years.
It's a long time, isn't it?
That's fucking awful.
They still talk about the series
awful.
that they won here.
Like, we go to England, we actually put on a good show for those blokes over there. Like, when we go over there, they love it because all they want to do is drink. So we go over there, we compete. Okay, they've won a lot of the series. The last 2 we've drawn, but before that, since your day, we didn't have much of a good record over there.
No.
But at least we compete.
89 turned our record around.
They come out here and 4-0, 5-0, 4-0. They're pathetic. You get to the MCG and the SCG and it's not who's going to win the series. It's how far are we going to win the series by? Is it going to be a 4 or 5-0 this year? So, they've got a lot to prove.
Well, I hope that happens.
Yeah.
But they have got a lot to prove and they're talking it up.
I'd be happy with 5-0.
Yeah.
People say, like a close series. I couldn't give a shit. I want Stokes and McCullum to go home and be looking at the job section of the paper like, what's next?
Well, if they get whacked 5-0...
well, McCullum lives in Brisbane, I think, or near Brisbane, so he doesn't have to go far.
It's going to be fascinating, but I mean, look, any Ashes series, the hype, the rhetoric around it, the players, what you think they're going to do, what they're not going to do, who's injured, who's not, can he bowl, what's Bashir going to do, all this sort of stuff. It's fantastic talk.
McCullum's married to an Aussie, actually. I didn't realise that.
I didn't know that, but that's a good thing for him.
Yeah.
All right, on you, Baz.
All right, so Ashes are coming. Now, Mike, when we were last here, we ended at the end of your playing career. But since I released your episode, most people don't even know you played cricket.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was a cricketer. He's from Who Dares Wins.
Yeah.
So for people listening, and I meant this at the top, there are not many cricketers that transition to become real media stars like yourself. And I say this, with the greatest amount of, compliments that you were able to forge a media career that wasn't just based around knowing about cricket and, being a talking head on sports coverage, which no offense to those people, but you actually forged a brilliant career outside of that. So it was Who Dares Wins, Sydney Weekender. There was Gladiator as well, which is sort of in between, I think, wasn't it, after Who Dares Wins?
No, they were all together.
All together.
At one stage.
Yep.
Yeah, it was, look, I think about it now and I had no intention or desire or want to go into television. And when I retired on the 10th of February 1994. That coincided with the release of a book that I'd written about my cricket life called Quick Wit. So at the release of that book at North Sydney Oval, I announced my retirement that day. And boy, that was an unbelievable moment. I mean, Wayne Holdsworth ran up and just started crying on my chest and a few of the boys were in shock. I wanted to try and keep playing, but I just had my 9th knee surgery and my body was just gone. After 14 seasons, first-class cricket, it was just gone. Yeah,
can I just jump in, like, 2 things. Firstly, when you wind back to those days, cricketers, they didn't make enough money never to work again like now. Like, a lot of the cricketers, they're in a position where they're never going to have to work again when they retire. It wasn't the same in your day.
No.
And now, before we started this, I learned something about you that I didn't know. And if I'm doing my maths, it's around this time you had triplets.
Yeah.
So you needed to bloody work. You had 3 new mouths to feed. But I think that is incredible. You had triplets. I don't think I've met anybody in person that's had triplets before.
Yeah, I retired in the February and the triplets were born in the June. So my then wife, unfortunately, we're now separated and divorced. But yeah, that was happening. That was bizarre. And look, from February to sort of June, it was a bit of a haze, but
So you're retired and you got triplets on the way. That's a huge life change.
yeah. Look, the bonus for me with the finance thing was the Cricket New South Wales granted me a testimonial year, and we made a few dollars out of that, enough to pay the house off, which was just such a massive thing back in those days.
Of course.
And to have it,
It's even bigger now.
I think up to that stage, there was only the Don, Dougie Waters, Jeff Lawson, and myself that had testimonials that had been endorsed by Cricket New South Wales. So I was, look at all the players that have played for the Blues, and I'm in that small group. I mean, I was so humbled, and that was a great year. But yeah, I had to go and find a job, and you retire, and you sort of go, well, what am I going to do now? I've got the triplets, and I'm 35. And look, I'd done an apprenticeship at Qantas as a ground engineer, so I'm an aircraft maintenance engineer by study. But I didn't really want to go back there and jump in the overalls or speak at a few gigs. What am I going to do? And out of the blue, I got this phone call, and it was these guys that had a company called Promotional Management, Promotional Partners, and they were bringing in from China all the little things that you got in your McDonald's meal. So if you open that up when you're a kid, you got a thing from some movie. They were doing all of that, and they wanted to create another arm called Promotional Management and manage some people and start a 2-litre motor racing series in Australia. So they rang me and said, do you want to come and work for us? You can be chairman of the company or blah, 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 which I didn't do. I just worked there for a while. And we managed Michael Slater, Zoe Goss, and a New Zealand race car driver called Greg Murphy, who went on to be a fabulous, won Bathurst a few times. And we started this 2-litre motor racing series. So I stayed there for a little while, but I was still speaking at some functions. This is insane, this story. And this guy rings me in the office one day of promotional management and said, I saw you speak at a function a week ago, and I thought you were fantastic. And I've got a show together called Great Ideas that I'm producing for the ABC. And the guy that was going to host it can't do it anymore, and I think you could host the show. And I went, mate, I'm working in the company here, and can't do that, mate, thanks. He came in the office, that guy, and sat in my office about 3 hours later and said, I think you can host
He wanted you. He really wanted you.
His name was David Flatman. I don't know whether he's still producing shows for the ABC. So I went and saw my partners in this business and said, this guy wants me to make a TV show. And to my surprise, they said, why don't you go and do it? So it was only 13 episodes, which is a series. So they gave me the time off to go and shoot this show called Great Ideas. And the show was about Australian innovation and invention, like the Victor lawnmower, anything great that we'd invented that was still out on the market, and these new inventions that were coming along. Shot that show, finished that. That was my TV career. And out of nowhere, I get a call from Channel 7 after it went to air. And they said, why don't you come out and speak to us? We'd like you to come out and maybe do some sport or stuff like that. So I went out and I spoke to the people at Channel 7, and the first thing I said to them is, I don't want to do sport. And they went, oh, why not? I said, because every sportsman retires and then he does sport. I mean, what do you want to do? And I remember there was a bowler hat on this coat rack in this office, and I got the bowler hat and I went da 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 in this guy's office, and he looked at me like I was an imbecile.
He's a madman.
He said, you've got that glint in your eye, but, and we've just started this show, Sydney Weekender. It had done 10 episodes. And if you want to start on January 1, 1995, you can host Sydney Weekender and learn how to be a TV host on that show. And it was basically a training show at the time. So then I went home, I started this business with these guys, got a 2-litre motor racing series going, talked to the missus, the triplets are there. They'd offered me some good money. So I signed up with Channel 7. Traditionally, everybody finished cricket wanted to go and work at Channel 9. So this was unusual and really out of the box. And the fact that I wasn't doing any sport was even more unusual. that started my love affair with Sydney Weekender that lasted 27 years. I just loved that show and going out into New South Wales to shoot shows. Just a dream every
You
week.
must have seen so many places, but met so many wonderful Australians doing that.
Just that part of it alone, where I'd go out to a national park somewhere out in New South Wales, which I didn't know much about, but would get the brief. I'd meet a ranger, national park ranger, and an Indigenous ranger as well, 90% of the time now. You'd go into these parks, we'd walk in with all the gear, a couple of Ks, find some really good spots. They'd say, oh, we got another spot where we'll have to get in the cars and drive around, then walk into the park. And then they'd say, you can't film this, but our mate over here will show you some Indigenous carvings and paintings and tell you the story, but it's sacred, so you can't shoot it. I asked our Indigenous brothers and sisters that much information over the 27 years, and they know it all. They live with country, not on country. They live with the animals and the trees. It's part of their life. We look at a tree and just go, oh, yeah, tree.
What can we do with it?
They know conditions, fire, rain, weather. They know everything. And we've never asked them enough. I think the knowledge is starting to come out now. Why wouldn't we go to these people that have been here for 65,000 years and say, how do we burn that off to stop these major bushfires? Because the cultural burning went from something that was normal in this country for 50,000 years to stop dead when Europeans come here and we go, why do we have these fires? Well, we don't burn off anymore. And where there was once land that was burnt out, it's now a major forest. It's regrown in the last couple of 100 years. So all of this knowledge and the animals and the totems and the Dreamtime stories. And then, of course, there's the national parks guys who are just talking about the national parks and what's in there, the fauna, the flora. That went on for 27 years and on farms, out to Broken Hill, Silverton, just everywhere, mate. I made 1,400 episodes of that show. That's 700 hours of TV. I think you can sit for 3 weeks, 24 hours a day and watch every episode of Sydney Weekender that I hosted. And it was amazing. I didn't realise it was going to be that fascinating when I first started because I was learning to be a host on the show. How do you look at camera? Do you walk? What do you say? Am I going, well, I didn't want to do that. So there was a real rejig in my mind about presenting. And you end up with your own style of being a presenter. But very quickly, Who Dares Wins and Gladiators arrived too. And they spoke to me about those shows and wanting just to jump into everything.
Well, Who Dares Wins was a hit. But just on that decision, you know, when you were a cricketer, you walked your own beat a little bit. So it doesn't surprise me that when your career ended and you're given an opportunity, you actually took a courageous route.
Yeah.
You took a risk.
It was pretty dangerous, actually.
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
They say, see you later.
Yeah, it was risky, no doubt, because they went, entertainment? No, we want you to do sport. I went, oh, I don't want to do that. Like, I want to try and do something different and do something that someone else hasn't done. And a few people came along and tried things. I mean, Matty Johns had a show like mine for a little while, up against us, but we beat him off after about 6 months. And other guys have gone in, but they've all drifted back to sport. I've never done that. I stayed in entertainment and thoroughly enjoyed it, and it put another feather in my cap, which was great.
I mean, you've got a beautiful skill. I think you can just, you know, really relate to, you know, everybody, you know, from all Australians or all people you can relate to. You've got that innate, like, nature. You know, I see it when, you know, you do a lot of great work with Randwick Petersham and, you know, you work with the NRL and, you know, you're one of those people you can be put in a situation. So the perfect host for a show like Sydney Weekender where you're going out and about all these different places and you need someone just to be on and be, you know, in that environment and be able to convey that to the people watching.
I enjoyed meeting all sorts of people. I mean, we do cultural festivals here in Sydney. It could be Lebanese or Indian or whatever it may have been. It was fascinating meeting those people. And look, my family loves a mag. I mean, we all love a chat. My sister's a good talk and we've all got stories. But my mum, I lost my father when I was 16 and my sister was 18. And that was a massive blow to the family. But my mum was this gentle, wonderful person, but don't cross the line because she'll say, hey, you've done something wrong, then you need to apologise about that. So she put those sort of ideas into my sister and mine's head, and I've had no problem ever sitting down, black, white, brindle, orange, green, I don't care who you are or where you're from. You're a human and I want to hear your story and I love you and I hope you love me for doing that. And I got so much of that on Sydney Weekender. So many times people would ring back and say, look, you've done a story at our place. I went to our last weekend. Our website's crashed and we've got people coming out now because you told this story so beautifully. And that was like, you know, just a wonderful thing. And it's not only me. I mean, this is the other thing I realised very quickly. I turned up at Sydney Weekender. Well, there's an executive producer. He's the boss. He's the captain. Then you got an assistant. And then you got researchers. So it was like my new cricket team. Everybody had their own job. And if one person in that office didn't do the best job that they could, the show wasn't the best it was going to be. So every week we tried to make the best show that we could, better than last week's, better than that. Keep striving to change the show around, put a different segment in or move me to this so people will watch, or am I going to open and close it? And I collaborated with a guy there called Alan Dungy for 20 years. He was the boss. We were on the road for 10 together, and then the show got that big that he had to stay in the office. But Alan was very creative, and him and I just locked in and would come up with these ideas, talk to the girls, the researchers, the production manager in the office. Next minute we were up in Murwillumbah doing this or down at the Snowy Mountains doing this, and they'd put these things together. It was fascinating. And we broke a lot of ground with that show. We were the first show on Channel 7 to be HD. We were the first show to be surround sound. We were the first show to be anything that they wanted to test to going to air, and this is how we're going to produce all those shows. They put it on Sydney Weekender. We want you to do it first and see how it works. So we're a bit of a trailblazer in that respect as well.
It's interesting you mentioned the team. I often think about, great media talent, great creative talent. It is important to be around people that are going to all rise together. You made the point, it's true. If someone's, a bit of an anchor, it pulls the whole team down. So, but for you to do 27 years on that show, I just think, that just shows how successful you were and how much loved the show was. And, you don't get 27 years in any gig.
If you get a year or a series, people are happy.
Yeah.
27, well, it's now 32, I think.
Yeah.
31
Who's hosting
years.
now?
Well, no one hosts it now. They just get all the presenters to that person will host one show and that'll do the other one. And look, the other thing that I got out of it, which was really big for me, was the collaboration, which I just mentioned. And when Sydney Weekender when I went away, there was only 4 of us. So there'd be producer, director, cameraman, sound man, me. And my collaboration with the cameraman and the producer on that of where's the shot going to be, how does it look, what are we trying to say? We've already had those 5 shots. This one's got to go in here to make that visual story perfect. And I didn't realise that some of these cameramen are putting this together in their head as they go along, because they'd wander off for half an hour and I'd say, where's Kevin gone? Oh, he's shooting some just shots because that shot's got to go in there and then you did that piece to camera and then that shot's got to get... So I started to get into this collaboration and the whole way of how television was produced, and man, I jumped down the rabbit hole there too. I sat in the edit suite. I wanted to know how edit worked. I sat in the audio suite. I wanted to know how audio worked. I sat with the editors to watch them putting in on the Avid edit suite and how it all lined up, how they did this, how they cleaned that up. So
to
once
do your podcast now is nothing.
Yeah. Look, Andrew, what happened is once I got my head across all that after about 10 years, I reckon, I then knew how it all fitted together and I fully understood what we were trying to do out on set to take that back to the office to create this. And the creative process is fascinating and I really, really jumped into that. It's an art form in itself, and presenting is an art form. I mean, it's the same person, but you've got to be in performance mode, which is just a little bit up and, look away to the camera and you've got to time that right. And I really enjoyed learning all that stuff while still trying to be this person and not being someone that I wasn't. And the collaboration with those people, and some of them were the best in the industry, I was very, very lucky to work with them.
But then Who Dares wins, and that's what everybody... Mike from Who Dares wins and Gladiator. But, I mean, these were dead set hits.
Yeah.
These were huge.
The first of their kind.
first of their kind.
Was right at the cusp of reality TV show, and that word had not even been said. We were entertainment, and the first 2 years of Who Dares Wins, we went down to the Logies and were put into the entertainment category because reality TV, that
Didn't exist.
That term didn't exist, no. Wow. Now, this is a story, right? When I did Great Ideas with David Flatman,
Yep.
one of the guys I went out with who was the directing and producing some of those shoots was an English guy. And he was really, really tough. His name was Adrian Brandt. I'd do these pieces to camera and he'd go, oh, that was a good rehearsal, mate. You're going to do it for real. And I thought it was really good. But, of course, I had no experience. So he really made me understand being on set, doing pieces to camera, how important they were, the energy level. Because if I speak to you on camera now, when it comes out on camera, you lose 20%. So I've got to be a little bit up there to make
You gain
it
20 pounds and you lose 20% energy.
all of that. So he taught me a lot about that. So then I finished with that Flatman. I started at Channel 7. And an outside production company is actually making Sydney Weekender and selling that to Channel 7. So I'm going to host Sydney Weekender and I walk into his office. Here's this Adrian Brandt, the English bloke that I'd worked with last year, and another guy called David Mason. So they had Mason Brand Entertainment. So I'm working with Adrian again and he's going out and I'm doing the show with him, Sydney Weekender. And out of nowhere, they came up with, on the Longreef Golf Course, a show about daring people. So they then went to Channel 7 and said, look, we think Michael can do this show. And I think this was the deal. They said, if you let Michael make Who Dares Wins, we'll give you Sydney Weekender. So they did. And Sydney Weekender went straight into the newsroom, was starting to be produced in Channel 7. And I was still hosting that. And then we'll go and make this Who Dares Win. So we made a couple of pilots of it. It was so bizarre, daring people to do absolutely anything for $50. And then there was a bigger dare and then a major dare at the end. All of a sudden, Tanya arrives.
I remember it so well.
Yeah.
Like, it was much must-watch
It was
TV.
crazy. And Tanya Zayeda arrived. She'd been a bikini model and all this sort of stuff, and she was fantastic. I only spoke to her the other day, actually, and she's on fire still. So out we go, and we start doing these things, these dares, eat a chili for $50 and don't wash it down. You got to keep it in, or drink a blood milkshake, or whatever it was, And the show just went. It was.
And did you do any of these dares yourself?
Yeah. Well, the idea was that if we dared you, and this was the major dare. So some family had written in saying, "Oh, our dad Andrew, he's a lovely bloke. He works really hard. He's a fantastic father. But he never has a holiday and he watches Who Dares Wins every week and says, I can do any of those dares on the show." So we'd get these letters and we'd find the guy and then we'd run in through the door here while you're working and go, "Andrew, Mike Whitney from Who Dares Wins, your wife wrote this letter in," and we'd take you then. But we'd cut outside and then you had to sign your life away, and then a week or two later we'd take you on the main dare, which could be swinging across on a rope, it could be bungee jumping out of an aeroplane, scaling a mountain, whatever it was. And if you did that, you pretty much got a holiday around the world. If you didn't do it or didn't want to have a go, Tanya and I had to have a go. So over the 115 shows we made, I think Tanya did about 20 and I did about 15. And some of them were, man, I'm not going to say the F word, but I went, scary.
I bet.
Like,
any you remember?
The very first one I did was up on the Gold Coast, and we dared this bloke to jump a jet ski off a ski ramp. Now, when the boats go by and the skiers go over the ramp and then they land on it. This is a jet ski. So they trained this bloke up all day, and right at the death, he shit himself and he cacked out. So they look at me.
You're on.
I'd been on a couple of jet skis at that stage, but not at 50 miles an hour, up a ramp and then in the air and then landing the jet ski. And we haven't got time because the sun's going down to actually do a run. All I can do is a run next to it to get the speed right. And we've got these jet ski guys and water safety guys. I'm yep, that's good. Yep, that's good. That's the speed you got to be. Got to shoot it. Now, this run. And what you had to do is as soon as you hit the deck, off the power. And then off the air, and as soon as you hit the water, on with the power.
Yep.
Boom! boom. And as I hit the water, my hand accidentally just hit the throttle. And I made it. It was unbelievable. It was a complete accident. Another one, we're up at Cairns, and we dared this girl to go. So there's a wire across and then another 2 wires above, hand over hand across this crocodile pond that was full of 5-year-old crocodiles.
Yeah, right.
It was still a little bit cold, so they're a bit sluggish. It's not full summer where they're really active. But there's about 30 of them.
But you wouldn't want to have a swim with them.
What the thing was, you had your feet on the wire below and your hands with gloves on there, but the other wire you were connected to a harness. So if you fell off, you were about a metre above the water bouncing on this rope. Yeah. So the girl goes out this day and I'm going, because if she doesn't do it, I've got to do it, right? And it's about 50 metres across. So it's a fair way with the arms. I'm going to her, you'll be right, get out there. You know, they're only 5-year-old, they're not that big, and it's back of winter and on. So
We've had breakfast.
So she goes out. She gets out about, and there was a little island that she had to go past. So she gets out, and about 30 of them immediately congregate underneath her, just looking at her. And she wasn't physically strong enough to hold the wire anyway because it was quite heavy on your arms and that. And she dropped. Well, the moment she dropped, the stunt guys pull her back and she didn't hit the water, but there's a lot of crocs in there. So they go, you're up.
Oh, my goodness.
So I get about halfway out and the old Popeye arms are starting to come. Like I'm really starting to blow out in the arms. I'm only halfway. And I look down and there's 15 of these 5-year-old crocodiles just looking. And I know I'm heavier than this chick. So I know if I go off, my feet might actually be very close. Although the boys were ready to pull. I said, I'm not dropping. Finally got over my arms. I looked like Popeye. I got in the spinach. I was exhausted. And they said, good job, mate. You'll be right. I went, it's all right for you. I'm just 30 crocodiles follow me across. So things like that. I don't know whether you could do things like that.
But isn't that why the show ended? Because
the show ended because FAI, the insurance company, and some of those guys went to jail for fraud. They were the biggest insurers and underwriters in Australia. And apparently when they went under, the insurance for that show like times 5, and they just said,
doesn't work.
There were some injuries, which I told about, but they then went and produced it all around the world. They made it in Canada, I think. They made it in Norway and Sweden and did really well. But they were also involved in the Mole, Survivor.
That's ahead of its time because nowadays,
yeah,
that's nothing.
It was amazing.
There are so many shows like this.
It was amazing. And, of course, what was a dare in year 1 was a $50 dare in year 2. And what was a major dare in year 2 wasn't even on the board in year 3.
Because you have to keep up in the ante.
This is one of...
So you said injuries, though. Any like accidents? Anyone get bitten by a crocodile?
I can remember 2.
Yep.
We had a wall, like probably twice the size of this wall I'm looking at, and it was full of cardboard boxes that were full of hay. And it was like 3 deep. So a big wall of cardboard boxes, then another wall. They're lighting those up and they're going to get a guy to ride a motorcycle through it as a stunt thing. So we find this guy, we find Andrew in Menczel, and we get him. Your wife's written this letter in with the kids, and we take him to this place. Never ridden a motorbike. So we've got him on this 250 and they're training him in this big paddock. And he's going, and they're going, mate, you only got to get it into second gear. Only got to change gears once. But the big thing is, remember, if something happens, don't jump on the front brake because that'll send you over. And if you go through this flaming wall of cardboard boxes and hay and a bit gets sort of caught on your face, on your helmet like that, just turn your helmet and it'll blow off. So they train him up for a day and a half. No dramas. Fantastic. And it gets to the moment and you're all a little bit anxious. I mean, this stuff had never been done before.
Of course.
He signed his life away and there's insurance and there's an ambulance there and there's a bloody fire brigade there. So they light it up. Away it goes. And he goes, wee, wee, poof, through it. And he got a bit of burning cardboard and hay on his face and he panicked. And he hit clutch and front brake together and done a couple of somersaults and landed. Broke his collarbone pretty badly, but that was about it. That was it.
Lucky.
Lucky.
Could have been a lot worse.
Another day down at Coogee Oval, down at Coogee Beach, we had this high jump sort of set up with bags and a ramp, and we were getting people to put skates on and see how high they could go over this thing. One girl went straight up and didn't make the bag and hit the ramp. That wasn't good. I think she might have gone to hospital and had a shoulder problem. But look, nothing any more serious than that. And after the show was done, we'd get together years later and go, wow, some of those days were just like scary as...
Yeah, you could have got eaten by a crocodile. You could have limped in here with one foot.
And again, I don't know whether you could actually get so close or do those things now without having a $10 million insurance policy. But that's why that show stopped after 3 years. And what it did... I thought I'd had a profile from cricket. No, that was just, no matter where I went, anywhere in Australia, the amount of times that people go, oh, you're going to dare me, or who dares wins.
It still happens.
Still happens. And people come up to me now and go, mate, that's still my favourite show. And how's Tanya and all this sort of stuff. So, yeah, Tanya said the same on the phone the other day. It gave her a start for her life in the media, and that's still going now. And it gave me this weird twist coming from sport, because some people came up to me in those early days and said, mate, how old are you? And I go, 36. Oh, a bit late to start in TV. What'd you do before that? And I went, played a bit of cricket, mate. And they had no idea, because not everybody likes the cricket.
Of course.
Not everybody knew me as a cricketer. So it was a strange time, a fascinating time, a lot of learning about the TV industry and where it was going. And as Who Dares wins, they ring me up these days, go, Gladiators, which had already had one season. So Kimberly Joseph and Aaron Pedersen hosted it, and John Alexander was the referee. It was that successful. The numbers were just, again, on the cusp of reality TV. This was crazy, never been seen. That had a series in England, and that was very, very big. So John Alexander's got to go to Wimbledon to do the commentary for Channel 7. So he can't be the ref for Series 2. Do you want to be the ref for Series 2? Well, I'm doing Sydney Weekender, Who Dares wins, and now they've asked me to do this show, which meant going up to the Boondall Entertainment Centre in Brisbane and filming up there for a couple of weeks at a time sometimes.
Yep.
The triplets were really small. And the missus just looked at me, and then they said, well, we'll pay you this much extra.
Yeah, I'm going.
She went, sign the deal. So I did. So that came into play then. And even that show was bizarre. That was Boondall Entertainment Centre, 5,000 people. You couldn't get another person in there. It was like being back
I remember Gladiators too. I mean,
it was like being back at the Gabba or the SCG. When I walked out, I got that adrenaline rush as the ref, and it was on for young and old, and some of it was quite physical.
It was a crazy show.
Quite
physical.
Crazy show. They were beating each other up, especially if someone came out at the start and they go, and this is Andrew, the competitor, and this is Kimberly Joseph, lovely girl, Kimberly. And Andrew, what have you got to say? Well, I've been watching these Gladiators and I don't think they're so tough. And I'd be at the back in the gym with them warming up. And it was on the TV. And this guy's going, I don't think they're so tough. And I've worked out how to beat them on this and that and that. And they'd just go, oh, you've just signed your death warrant, bro. And he got beat up out there for having too big a mouth. Some of the competitors were phenomenal, really phenomenal. But, yeah, that show, again, was bizarre. And I was shooting those 3 shows in that first year.
He's talked about doing Weekender, Who Dares Wins, Gladiator, but clearly you're someone that likes to be busy because, you retired.
Yeah.
You retired from Sydney Weekender a couple of years ago, but you're not stopping. You are president of Roundwick Petersham Cricket Club, very active there. You've now got your podcast. As I said before, you're very active in Souths when you came back in. You're someone that likes to keep busy. But do you ever sort of stop and reflect and go, like you had 2 careers people would die for, a cricket career people would love,
yeah,
but then a TV career,
that
wholly independent of that.
Years.
Obviously, a bit of leverage there, but still, you took the gutsy thing and said, I'm not going to go and be a talking head?
Look, I sit down now and just go, how amazing has my life been? And there's ups and downs in everybody's life. There's disappointments and some of the injuries for me, and marriage breakup, all this sort of stuff. But if I looked at it as a whole piece, I would have never have dreamed of playing cricket for Australia. I mean, I was not a bad cricketer. I loved my rugby league when I was a kid and down surfing. But to play for Australia, like I would have, it was a dream. But then to realise that dream, unbelievable. Then to spend 30 years in the media, sort of doing what I wanted to do in the media, and Channel 7 giving me the opportunity to do that. And even though I said I didn't do any sport, I did. I did the Rugby World Cup, which was in the 90s. England won it. 97 or 8 or something.
Yep.
I did the 2000 Olympics, and I did the Manchester Commonwealth Games, which was in 2002. The Rugby World Cup and Manchester Commonwealth Games are amazing, but I'll just talk about the Olympics for just 5 minutes.
Because it's interesting. It's about 25-year anniversary.
It is.
A lot of talk about that.
When I was a kid, I was across a lot of sports, rugby league, cricket, but I was also a little athlete, and I was a very good long jumper and triple jumper, and I was a state champion when I was a kid, and not a bad sprinter as well. So in my late sort of early teens, I had some idea that I wouldn't mind being an athlete and follow the triple jump, long jump thing, and wouldn't it be cool to go to the Olympics? Well, you know, rugby league and cricket took over, but I've always been an athletics fan. I love the World Athletics Championships. I love the long jumping and the triple jumping, whatever. So then at Channel 7, I've been there 5 years, and we get the Olympics, and we're the host broadcaster out of Sydney. And then the word comes round that they want you to work on the Olympics, and you've got to be at this meeting with all the other people that they're working. And there's people from all sport there, and then you get handed your blazer, and then you get handed this, and then they hand you your card to get in, your pass. And I go to the boss at sport at the time, what are all those symbols on it? That's access all areas.
Wow.
I went, what do you mean by that? He said, any Olympic venue, you can go in. Access all areas. I went, wow. So then leading up to the Olympics, I got asked to do the Olympic show. And that show was about sending me out and doing obscure sports. So I did the trap shooting, I did archery, I did water polo, I did baseball, I did bike riding at the velodrome. I rode around the velodrome, and I'm telling you, bro, it's steep. So if you're not going at a decent pace and the centrifugal force forcing you into that turn, you just slide off. And when I got to the velodrome that day, I went, nah. I go, oh, man, I'm a cricket player. I go, get on the bike and go. So I did. It was fantastic. And I ended up doing the bike racing at the Olympics. I did the velodrome and the road race, which is something I'd never. I went and did the tennis.
Fantastic.
I did stuff that I just never, ever thought. I did the rowing out at Penrith. They're going, you're doing the rowing. I go, don't know much about the rowing. Well, there's the book. Read about it. So, and there was one English guy there. I can't remember his name, but he got his 5th gold medal rowing for England in the rowing. It was just this moment. I was there watching him get these medals presented. And to be involved in the Olympics in Sydney, look, not only for Sydney and for our country, it was just unbelievable. But for me to be able to go to an Olympics that I'd thought about when I was a kid as a journalist and as a reporter, but to be there. I was there the night Kathy won. I was there the night Kathy won the semis with my kid.
Beautiful.
I was there at I was there the opening ceremony night with my pass. Yeah, you're right, straight in. There I am, and I did this piece to camera which went around the world, and that was just a real moment, Menners, working on that. I watched a thing the other day on the 25th anniversary of the Games, and it took me back and how proud I was to be an Australian and how well we did it. And Samaran's going, the best Olympic Games ever, and all of those things. And people still wore those volunteer shirts around. I saw them for years after that. People still wear them around Sydney. Yeah, like that. Good on you, mate. So it was a great moment personally for me, but for our country and for Sydney and our athletes were just amazing. So, yeah, that was big. I'm tearing up thinking about it.
Yeah, it's emotional.
Yeah.
I can sense that's something that, stayed with you in long media career, those Olympics, a real highlight.
Absolute, mate. That, the stuff I did at 7 was amazing. But yeah, those couple of weeks out there in the international broadcasting area with people from all over the world, and you'd go in on the day and they'd go, oh, well, you've got to go out. What about this day? Go in there. I drive out, and I'm living at Coogee at the time. So I drive all the way out to Homebush, and they go, oh, no, you've got to go back to Bondi Beach. I said, thanks for that. What am I doing? You're interviewing Ian Thorpe and Eric Musambani. Remember Eric the Eel?
Yes.
Right. I interviewed them outside Speedo's Cafe at Bondi Beach that day.
Go.
It was just amazing. And Eric had swum like a 3-minute 100 metres. He was the only guy from his country even to go there. He just made the 100, but had turned into this worldwide celebrity, sponsored by Speedo. He was such a cool dude. A day like that, fascinating, with Thorpe, who kicked some serious butt at those Olympics as well. And Grant Hackett was there that day as well. Amazing.
What an amazing career.
Yeah.
I mean,
when I think about those things and those people that I've had a chance to interview and talk to, incredible, absolutely incredible.
yeah, and reflecting is hard because often you're doing as a person. And, I said before, you're a doer, you're always doing something, and you don't often sit back and, take in those little morsels.
It's interesting you say that, Menners, because when I had the knees done 3 years ago, there's a fair bit of downtime after that. I had them both done. It was serious. It was brutal. But for the first time for a long, long time, years and years and years, I was at home on my own and there was not anything good to watch on the TV. So I started reflecting on my life and the cricket. And I reckon some days I sat there just shaking my head going, really? Really? That you did that and you met that dude and that happened, and it's a dream. It was a dream that's come true. It's been crazy. The thing I like now about where I'm positioned, you mentioned the Rabbitohs. I just try and help the Rabbitohs. They were my inspiration when I was a kid. Johnny Sattler, Ron Coote, Bobby McCarthy, Elwyn Walters, this South Side. They inspired me to be a sportsman. So I don't take anything from, just want to help them out. I've never taken one thing, not $1, 1 cent from Randwick Cricket Club or Randwick Petersham. I can't do that because without them and the guys that mentored me when I went down there as a 17-year-old, my dad had been gone a year and I was hanging around with some pretty likely lads at the time, and they made me believe. So that's why I've been the president for 25 years, and I've only ever been at the one club. Without the guys at Randwick, I don't get to play for New South Wales. You don't get to play for Australia. They taught me about the club, about respect, about trust, about humility, all of these things, which I've tried to carry on through my life. So I'm at Randwick Petersham to try and help the club. That's it. I just want to try and help people now. Do a little bit for charity, still speak at a couple of gigs, but it's basically around those things that I just want to try and help people out.
That's beautiful, and it's
only because, Andrew, so many people helped me. So many people helped me, encouraged me, made me believe, and some of those people are still alive now, and they're in their 80s. Every time I see some of these guys, I hug them and thank them. Thank you for looking after me.
It's a great illustration of just keeping grounded. It's interesting. It harks back to when you were first on. You said you first, you were Shane Warne's first test tour roommate in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
And afterwards, whenever he would see you, we'd always thank you for showing him the ropes. And he was someone who was famously, as high as he got, still had his feet on the ground.
100%.
And you as well. So
I think I'll tell you this one story when I was growing up. And my mum was an old Paddington girl, had no shoes until she was 10, hand-me-down clothes, very, very poor family. But she always used to say this, no one likes a big head, mate. No one likes someone with a big mouth and a big head. And my sister and I have always remembered that. So no matter where we've been elevated to, I've always, and look, there were probably times when I was 21 or 22, walking around thinking that you're pretty good in the Australian team, rooming with Dennis Lilly and whatever, but the humility thing and the ego thing is so important to me now. I'm no better than anybody else. I've just had an opportunity to have an unbelievable life and grabbed those opportunities and wrung everything out of them. But that doesn't mean I'm any better than a bloke who's homeless on the street. I mean, I need to help him. That's the bottom line. Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm passionate about podcasting. One great thing is you said you were sitting around. Now you've got this podcast. You can get all these yarns into this podcast so they're there forever and people can listen to them. I know this afternoon I'm going to go and find that Doug Walters episode of the podcast and have a bit of a listen. So how's that? So, Mike, thanks so much for joining me again.
Andrew.
For those that didn't catch the first episode, we really got stuck into Mike's cricket career. So cricket fans, it's all there. Mike rooming with Dennis Silly, Warney, all the stuff. So go back and listen to that. But Mike, thank you for joining us. Congratulations. It's an amazing story, and I'm so glad I got to share it with my listeners.
Thanks for having me in again, Andrew, and thanks for letting me tell this second side of my life, which has been so captivating and so amazing. And yeah, I hope it keeps rolling on for a few more years, mate, because I love storytelling, and it's just great to be here with you again, Menners. Thanks very much for having me, bro.
Thank you.